Welcome to the season finale of the VYPEU Podcast, episode number 22. I'm joined by the original crew of the VYPEU Podcast, not only by Robert Gonslin, but let's welcome back Tinley Kane.
Yay! It feels so good to be back, and I feel like this is just the only way to do it and end things this year.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you. I think the last time we were all together was back on the live episode before the state championship weekend.
Yeah, no, I was a little MIA, I'm not gonna lie. I had a busy schedule in the spring, but I had to come back and wrap things up.
Yeah, well, Tinley, talk a little bit about the busy schedule that you had in the spring, because it all ended up being worth it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I play softball and I play for Episcopal High School, and we were on our fourth consecutive SBC South Preparatory Conference title, and we won state for the fourth year in a row, which was awesome after coming back from COVID and everything. It was such a great win, and next year I'm so excited for them. They are going to possibly break an all-time record for our school, going for their fifth SBC title, which I'm so excited to see if they can make it happen.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, in this episode, we're not only going to talk about football, but basketball, baseball, and track as well. So it's a big review of all the sports that we covered this year. So let's go ahead and kick it off with football. So Caleb Koger, who was a guest that we had on a few weeks ago in the episode with Jalen Gilbo as well, him and Katie captured their 9th state championship this year. They were in the 6A D2 playoffs after they lost to Tompkins in a district loss, which came out of nowhere, first time in about 13 years. So Katie gets another state championship.
Let's not forget about Austin Westlake being on the rise this year with their second consecutive state championship in 6A. They defeated North Shore in the state semifinals. And guess who led them? Another VYPEU podcast guest, Cade Klubnik. He's committed to Clemson now. So we were very fortunate to have both those starting quarterbacks come in, and we had Cade before that he won state, and we had Caleb after he won state. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And what's so crazy is that when we were talking about one of our early podcasts, we were all talking about who could win state and who we had our eyes on throughout the whole season. And Will, you were the one to be like, hey, Westlake's on the come up, like, don't sleep on them. And you've just predicted throughout the whole football season every single time, which I wouldn't be just like shocked because you were the first to be like, hey, like Westlake's gonna definitely like capture the win. But honestly, like, good job on you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, choosing Westlake and North Shore as the two teams that would win 6A was not exactly a bold prediction, but I'm glad to have chosen Westlake, and I know it's not our preview show for next year, but Westlake is going to win another one in 2022. So
heard it here, folks.
I think Katie's going to do it too. And if they match up in the same game, maybe in state, I'm assuming they're going D1 and D2, but if they match up again, I think it's going to be a great game.
I mean, those are two really historic teams. So, I mean, it's awesome just seeing one of like the older teams that have always been superior in Texas high school football, and then another one that's just recently been awesome with Cade leading them. I'm so excited to see what he does for his senior year too.
Exactly. Yeah, let's switch over to 5A because that was really exciting. We didn't cover that as much this year, but there were some great teams, especially in 5A D2.
Yep, for sure. You guys go for it.
Yeah, I'll take this one. I mean, we obviously had the football public school player of the year candidate, Reggie Branch, and his Crosby team. They actually made an incredible run all the way up to Dallas, where Jerry World is, AT&T Stadium. Unfortunately, after making that great run, they did lose to the 5A D2 champions, Aledo.
Yeah, Aledo has just been dominant in 5A as of late. I don't know the exact number, but a lot of state championships and not a lot of time. 5A D1 was pretty crazy too, right, Tinley?
Yeah. The only two undefeated teams faced off for the championship, a game where Ryan dominated just like they did all season to win a state title, which was pretty awesome to see.
I really got to hand it to Ryan because they really came back this past football season after losing in the state championship to Shadow Creek back in 2019. Came back this year, won that title, brought it home. You know, after losing a title in 1 year, you're either very committed or to come back next year, or you're kind of distraught because you went so far. Yeah, you didn't bring home what you wanted to bring home. But Ryan, against all odds, they came out. They didn't shock the world. People knew they were good. They showed everyone what they're made of, and they brought home that title.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap it up, the VYPEU podcast featured 5 D1 athletes, including Max Merrill, who's going to UT, Brady Boyd, who's going to Minnesota, and Michael Taff, who, after we had him on, actually flipped to UT on, I believe, a PWO. So not only did we have those 5, but very many more that will play later on in the class of 22, class of 23, like Caleb Koger, Marcus Scott, who Robert is going to talk about a little bit later on, had a very important announcement a few weeks ago.
He did. Can't wait to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, now let's talk about basketball, because we were gone for a lot of the basketball season, but it sure was exciting. And a team that I got to cover a lot was Beaumont United, Wesley Yates, Terrence Arsenault, the Traylon Porsche. The list goes on of amazing players on that team. They had a perfect season this year in 5A, only their second full year as a team. And in the first one, they only had freshmen. So they captured their first championship in an overtime thriller against Kimball. Terrence Arsenault had 2 buzzer beaters, I believe.
Will, you always know I'm rooting for Beaumont.
Yeah, you do. Rep the 409.
You guys and your teams, that's actually hilarious. You know, going with a different team, Atascocita was the only team for the greater Houston area to make it to the Final Four from 6A. And unfortunately, they were defeated by Jaden Greathouse and Westlake, who lost to Duncanville in the state championship. You know, Westlake is not only good at football, but I guess, yeah, they definitely show out in basketball too.
Greathouse, an all-around student athlete, big football player, another great basketball player, and another guest we had on this year in the VYPEU podcast.
Yeah, Jaden was the first guy that we had back on after our little hiatus in the beginning of the year. So not only has he been on the AAU circuit in the last few months, he's been taking visits to Tuscaloosa and UT and places like that. So we can't wait to have him back on, hopefully this year.
Well, on the girls' side, Cypress Creek, they were led by the VYPE Women's Basketball Public School Player of the Year. And that was or candidates. They were led by their candidates. Excuse me. That was Rory Harmon and Kendall Hunter. They were undefeated, actually. So get this. Cypress Creek was undefeated coming into the 6A state championship game. But Desoto, who we're going to talk about a little bit later in the track and field team for girls, their girls team from Desoto up in Dallas, they won 53-37.
Yeah, so great team from Cy Creek. The VYPE Awards are this weekend, so make sure to tune into those and find out who wins that award. Baseball was very special for Robert and I this year.
Was.
Go ahead and get right into that.
Okay, well, our very own Strake Jesuit Fighting Crusaders and their hashtag RallyMac were the last Houston team in the 6A, the entire 6A classification, to be in the baseball playoff before falling to a very, very talented Keller team in Round Rock of the state Final Four.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that was
Keller...
awesome because, I was just going to say, it was awesome because me going out as a senior and watching like the last sports team that was still playing just go that far, that was great to experience.
Yeah, that Straight Jesuit run is something that I know Robert won't forget, and I know I won't forget it either.
No, I'm
those games
with you guys. Can you guys explain for the viewers what this like RallyMac is? Because I saw it on Instagram, a couple of posts from the from the guys on the team, and I'm a little confused as an outsider, but I kind of want to know what the inside story is about it.
Will, I think you should take that.
Yeah, so one of the players on the team, Carson Brown, actually, I think we may have talked about this before, but it's such a crazy story that we could tell it 1,000 times. So Carson Brown, who was a pitcher on the team, had a cup of Velveeta mac and cheese at some point in the season and kept it, I believe, in the dugout in one of the earlier district games, and they won. So they kept the mac and cheese there. And eventually it got moldy, so they would bring out a new cup every time. But every time they had that rally mac there, they won. And the only time they lost in the playoffs before losing to Keller was when the mac and cheese was touched by an official. So just incredible stuff. And I know another one of the teams had some superstitions. Baseball is probably the most superstitious game ever.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, personally speaking, we had a game in Pearland, and as like we kind of wanted to like do a different uniform or whatever, and we hadn't ever done like a blue on blue with like a blue jersey, blue pants look. Everybody was just kind of thrown off by it, but coming into the game, nobody was expecting us to win. Obviously, Pearland in his like years past has been a dominant state winning team. They even had their state ceremony from years past that day, ironically. And we came out and won, and we're like, okay, you know what? Every game that like district, state, we're gonna wear this blue uniform, and we secure the bag at the end of the day. So I guess it worked. Superstition thing in softball, baseball, they really are so weird, yet they work.
There you go.
Yeah. So Keller and Rockwell Heath, who defeated Smithson Valley in the other side of the semifinals, they headlined an all DFW 6A state championship, which Jet Williams, who was a guest on our last show, him and the Heath Hawks won 4-3. They've got quite a few state championships already in that baseball program.
Yeah. So moving on to 5A, or Robert.
Go ahead, Tinley.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of want to talk about both the programs for Barbers Hill. So not only did Barbers Hill baseball win in 5A, but Barbers Hill softball also won too, which was pretty awesome for an historic school once again winning another state championship. But Barbers Hill baseball won their first 5A championship after defeating Amarillo and Hallsville in 2 wild games. What I've been told. I mean, I would have been awesome to witness these games. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. But Will, I'm sure you definitely heard some stuff being there.
Yeah, I was there. I got to see Barbers Hill come back with a 6th inning in their game against Amarillo. They ended up winning by 4 runs, I think. And then in the championship against Hallsville, who I really had no clue where, I still don't know where that team is from. I know they're from Hallsville, but that's an area I'm not really familiar with. They come in as this great team. They beat Rouse on the other side. And then the game is tied up most of the time between Hallsville and Barbers Hill. Barbers Hill wins off of some crazy rule. But yeah, congratulations to them. They had to knock off Friendswood, who a lot of people thought was the best team in the country for a while. So a big congratulations to an incredible class of guys on that Barbers Hill baseball team and on the softball team as well.
Yeah, I mean, speaking for the softball team, in order for Barbers Hill to get to state in general, they had to go against Lake Creek, who had an undefeated perfect season. And up until then, those teams were equally so good, pitching, hitting, anything. And by the end of it, it just showed Barbers Hill, I guess, wanted it more at the end of the day. And even though both teams are great, it was so tough seeing Lake Creek just end a perfect season just like that.
Well, yeah, they really had some talented players, including the 2020 pre-COVID cover athlete Emily Kennedy, who is a very committed to Texas A&M. Last I checked, I'm sure she still is, but yeah, she's just a very talented softball player. And for Barbers Hill to go through a team that she leads, a very talented Lake Creek team, like you said, Tinley, that shows a lot and shows all the grit that they have. and shows really like all the success that's going on in the baseball/softball program down at Barbers Hill.
Yeah, it was awesome because it was a rivalry. You have Sophia Simpson pitching for Barbers Hill, who's committed and signed to the University of Texas. And you also have, like you said, Emily Kennedy, who's signed to Texas A&M, which was awesome to watch two pitchers just dominate in just a semi, or I guess, yeah, no, you'd call it a playoff game. And UT just took it over. And then Sophia Simpson ended up with a championship game, striking out last batter at University of Texas's field. So it was kind of like a really magical moment of like closing a high school career and entering your collegiate career. I think it would have been such a great moment for any person getting to play on like their next level field. So it was awesome for Barbers Hill overall, everything. I think we got to switch it up though and talk and show some love to track and field. So take it away.
Yeah, Robert, this was your specialty, so.
Yeah, so I'm always pretty pumped to talk about the track and field scene. It was a good year. It was, I mean, as for all sports, I wasn't very sure how track and field was going to do in a COVID setting, but I have to say it was a huge success, and it was a great season nonetheless. Humble Summer Creek, they actually took home their second title as a team in the men's 6A track and field state championship. The championships were held for men's and women's. I think 1A through 6A, they're all held at UT Austin's track and field facility. But going back to Summer Creek, very talented team. I actually got to see them a little bit in a couple meets this year as I'm a pole vaulter myself. I was a pole vaulter strike judge with. Saw them at the Woodlands meet. But at state, they scored 54 points, which is kind of a lot because the way it works in state is at any ordinary track meet that's not at like state or district, area, regional, state, any normal track meet, if you just place, you score for your team. Whereas with state, you need to keep having those enough athletes to qualify from districts to area, and from area to regionals, and from regionals to state. So like not all of your team might make it to like the second or third round, and to score 54 points at state shows a lot and how talented they are. Marcus Scott, the second, who we were just talking about earlier a little bit, like we said, we talked about him a little bit later. We had him on the podcast. He's a football player, track runner. He was at the time when I interviewed him committed to LSU, seemed pretty excited about it, and then recently he made a huge flip that no one expected. I didn't expect it. Will, I don't think you expected it either. He flipped his commitment to the Missouri Tigers. Obviously, congrats to him. He's doing what he thinks is best for him. That's if he's doing what's best for him, I think that's what's best for him. Congratulations to him. But anyways, Marcus Scott and the rest of his 4x400 meter relay team at College Park, they got first in the event at the 6A state championship. They ran a time of 3 minutes and 13 seconds. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and then just to wrap it all up, Desoto's girls track team won their 8th state championship. So Desoto has a lot of really dominating programs, but their girls track team may be the best, tying them for 3rd place in history with those 8 state titles, and they scored 72 points at the meet.
That's a lot. It's crazy.
Well, I think that is going to put a big bow on what was an incredible season of the VYPEU Podcast. 22 episodes. We did it from our studio in the Cannon for about half the time. We were able to get a live episode in where you all could see us. And then after a couple months off, Robert and I switched to Zoom. We had so many great guests on. Ella Hestand will be with me for the next season. I hope that Robert and Tinley are able to join me as guests, maybe a little bit later on. But I think that's going to do it. Signing off for one last time, I'm Will Turboff.
And Robert Gonsolin, super grateful to be a part of this podcast. Lots of fun moments occurred, and just getting to talk with people from all over the city and the state of Texas. I'm just very grateful. I'm Robert Gonsolin.
Yeah, I'm Tinley Kane, and it's truly been one heck of a ride. I have loved each and every single moment doing this podcast with both of you guys. It's been so much fun. Yeah, I mean, this is it. Thank you guys for tuning in.
One last time with Robert Gonsolin and Tinley Kane. I'm Will Turboff. Thanks for tuning in.